On a gray, sleepy morning in Cleveland, a seasoned city bus driver named Marcus Boyd pulled his coat tighter as he sat behind the wheel of Line 22. He didn't know it yet, but today, a small act of compassion would cost him everything, and give him even more. Marcus had driven this route for nearly 2 decades. He wasn't just a driver. He was a quiet observer of the city's heartbeat, the steel workers, the nurses, the invisible people who made the city run while others slept. At 50, Marcus moved through the world like a shadow, present but unnoticed. Tall and steady, he wore his uniform with quiet pride. Not because he wanted attention, but because dignity mattered, especially for a black man in America. The city barely looked his way. Some passengers smiled. Most didn't. Some clutched their bags tighter when he nodded hello. That was the daily balance of being black and decent, always proving, never just being. In his wallet was a picture of his daughter, Maya. 7 years old, full of questions and dreams. She was why he worked the dawn shift, why he skipped meals some nights, why he clipped coupons like it was a sport. Bills kept stacking. Rent, overdue medical debt from his late wife's treatment, school fees. The numbers never added up. But Marcus didn't complain. He endured. That morning, the rain whispered down like it was trying not to wake the city. Marcus sipped weak coffee, staring into the fogged windshield, unaware that a little boy would soon step into his bus and change both their lives. A few minutes into his shift, the bus rolled past the usual landmarks. The towering steel mills, the faded billboards promising hope, the run-down apartment complexes that nobody cared to fix. Marcus didn't see them anymore. He'd memorized the streets, the cracks in the pavement, the potholes, the faces of the regulars. Then the door slid open. The bell rang. A small figure appeared at the foot of the stairs, his eyes wide, his face a mixture of fear and curiosity. He was no more than 8. His clothes were worn and too big for his frame. The bus was already full, but Marcus didn't hesitate. "You coming in, kid?" Marcus asked in a low voice, trying to hide his concern. The boy nodded, hesitated for a moment, then slowly climbed the stairs. The passengers were used to seeing young faces here and there, but there was something different about this boy. His eyes were hollow, like he hadn't slept in days. He looked around as if he was lost. "Hey, where's your mom, kid?" asked a middle-aged man from the back. He didn't sound concerned, more like annoyed. The boy didn't answer. He just clutched the edge of the seat and stared out the window. Marcus knew that silence. It was the same silence his daughter made when she was scared or confused. "Hey, kid, I'm talking to you." The man's voice grew louder. "What's wrong with you?" Marcus shot him a sharp look, warning him to quiet down. The last thing this boy needed was an angry man yelling at him. The boy shifted nervously but said nothing. Marcus couldn't let it go. He had to know what was going on. "Where's your mom, kid?" he asked again, more gently this time. I don't know," the boy finally mumbled, his voice trembling. "She told me to wait. I'm supposed to meet her after school, but she's not here." Marcus's heart clenched. It wasn't the first time he'd seen a child abandoned, but something about this moment felt different. The boy's words hung in the air, heavy and painful. The bus lurched forward as Marcus turned his attention back to the road, but his mind kept returning to the boy. What kind of world left a child to wait for a parent who might never show? Marcus watched the boy for a moment, then asked, "What's your name?" The boy looked up, startled. Jay, he stammered. his voice barely above a whisper. "Jay, huh?" Marcus nodded, trying to soften his tone. "All right, Jay, what happened? Why are you all alone out here?" Jay didn't answer right away. Instead, he gazed out the window again, his face unreadable. Marcus didn't press further, sensing the boy wasn't ready to share. The bus slowed down as it approached the next stop. Marcus noticed a group of teenagers gathered on the corner, their laughter echoing through the street. They didn't seem to notice Jay, but Marcus felt the tension in the air. He could tell things weren't right. The door opened, and one of the teenagers, a tall boy with a cocky grin, stepped on. His eyes scanned the bus, then landed on Jay. "What's this? Another lost kid?" he sneered, his tone mocking. Jay flinched, shrinking back in his seat. Marcus stood up, his presence demanding attention. "That's enough, kid," Marcus said, his voice firm. "Keep walking." The teenager hesitated, but then shrugged and moved past, giving Jay one last scornful look. Marcus could see the fear in Jay's eyes, and it struck him deep. This was more than just a moment of bullying. This was about survival. As the teenager exited the bus, the mood shifted. The other passengers fell silent, avoiding eye contact. Marcus knew that look. It was the same look he'd seen too many times before, when people witnessed injustice and chose to look away. Marcus turned to face Jay again. "You all right?" he asked quietly. Jay nodded without speaking. But Marcus could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept his head down. The boy wasn't all right. The bus started moving again, and Marcus's mind raced. What was Jay's story? Why was he out here alone? And what had happened to his mom? Before he could ask another question, the bus stopped at the next corner. A woman stepped on. She was tall, with a stern look on her face. Her eyes immediately locked onto Jay, and Marcus saw her hands ball into fists. "Jay, where have you been? I've been looking all over for you," she shouted, rushing toward him. Marcus's body tensed. The woman wasn't angry, but there was something else in her voice. Desperation? Fear? Whatever it was, it made him uneasy. As the woman grabbed Jay's arm, Marcus stood up. "Is everything okay?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. She turned to face him, startled. "Yes, everything's fine," she said quickly, but the way she said it didn't convince him. Marcus didn't buy it. "You sure?" "He looked like he needed help," he said, his eyes flickering toward Jay. The woman stiffened, then forced a smile. "I'm just his aunt. I'm taking him home now. Thank you for being concerned." Marcus nodded, but as she led Jay away, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Marcus watched them leave the bus, his eyes lingering on Jay's small frame as he was pulled away. There was something in the woman's hurried demeanor that didn't sit right with him. It wasn't just concern for a lost child. He sat back down, feeling uneasy. As the bus rolled on, he couldn't shake the image of Jay's fearful face, the tension in his body. It was clear the boy was running from something. But what? The bus made another stop, this time in front of a small diner. A few passengers got off, but Marcus remained seated. His mind was still racing, wondering if he had missed something. Suddenly, a voice broke his thoughts. "You seem like you have something on your mind," the older woman sitting across from him said. She had been silent up until now, but her sharp gaze suggested she had been watching the whole scene. Marcus turned to her, surprised by the sudden conversation. "I'm just thinking about that boy. Something doesn't feel right," he said, his voice low. The woman nodded slowly, her expression softening. "I know what you mean. I've seen that look before. There's a lot of things happening in this town that people don't talk about. Some things people try to ignore. Marcus was intrigued. What do you mean? The woman leaned in, lowering her voice. This town has its secrets. And that boy? He's caught in the middle of it all. People like him. Kids from broken homes. They don't get a fair shot. They become easy targets for things they don't even understand. Marcus felt a knot form in his stomach. He had always known the world was unfair, but hearing it spoken so plainly hit harder than he expected. So, what's really going on with Jay? Marcus asked quietly, his curiosity growing. The woman glanced around before speaking again. It's not my place to say much, but I'll tell you this. There are people in this town who prey on kids like Jay, and when their families can't protect them, well, that's when things get dangerous. Marcus's jaw tightened. He was beginning to understand. You think Jay's mom is in trouble, don't you? The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she just looked at him with a somber expression. I don't know, but I've seen too many things like this. And people like Jay, they don't just disappear without a reason. The bus pulled up to the next stop, and the woman stood. Before stepping off, she turned back to Marcus. Watch out for him. If you're really concerned, you might want to get involved. But be careful. Some things are better left alone. With that, she walked off the bus, leaving Marcus deep in thought. His mind raced again. What was the woman trying to tell him? And, more importantly, how far was he willing to go to help Jay? Marcus sat still for a moment, the woman's words echoing in his mind. Some things are better left alone. It felt like a warning, one he wasn't sure he wanted to heed. But something about Jay's situation gnawed at him. The bus doors hissed open as the next passengers boarded, snapping Marcus out of his thoughts. He stood up and glanced at the small street ahead of him. The diner was just a few steps away, and he wondered if he should take a look around. He decided to follow his instincts. Stepping off the bus, he walked toward the diner, glancing back only once to make sure no one was watching him. Inside the diner, the smell of coffee and grilled bacon filled the air. The place was nearly empty, with just a few patrons scattered across the booths. Marcus sat at the counter trying to act casual, though his mind was far from relaxed. "Coffee?" the waitress asked, her tone friendly but professional. "Yeah, just black," Marcus replied, his voice distant as he scanned the room for any sign of Jay or the woman. He noticed a man sitting in the far corner, watching him intently. The man seemed familiar, but Marcus couldn't place him. His eyes narrowed as he tried to remember where he had seen him before. The man gave him a small nod, as if acknowledging that Marcus had noticed him. Marcus tensed, his instincts telling him to be cautious. Something about the man's demeanor wasn't right. "Here you go," the waitress said, placing the coffee in front of him. Marcus forced a smile and took a sip, trying to ignore the man in the corner, but the feeling of being watched wouldn't go away. "You okay, honey?" The waitress's voice broke through his thoughts again. Marcus looked up, meeting her concerned gaze. "Yeah, just thinking," he said, hoping she wouldn't press the issue further. She didn't push. Instead, she nodded and walked away, leaving Marcus to his thoughts. He was on edge, but he couldn't pinpoint why. That man, there was something about him that didn't sit right. Just as Marcus was about to turn his attention back to the street outside, he heard the faint sound of a door creaking open. He turned around quickly, his heart racing. Jay's face appeared in the doorway. The boy looked around nervously, clearly lost. "Jay!" Marcus called out, standing up. The boy froze, his eyes wide with fear, before quickly ducking back out of sight. Marcus's pulse quickened. Without thinking, he rushed toward the door, hoping he could catch up with the boy before he disappeared again. As he stepped out into the street, Marcus saw Jay sprinting down the sidewalk. His heart sank. He had to find out what was going on with that boy before it was too late. Marcus's legs were moving faster than his mind could process. He ran down the street, weaving between the few pedestrians, not daring to look back. His breath came in quick gasps, and his shoes slapped the pavement with urgency. He finally saw Jay at the corner of the block, looking over his shoulder nervously. The boy's face was pale, eyes wide, and his body stiff with fear. Marcus slowed down just enough to avoid startling him. "Jay, it's me," Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady, though his own nerves were on edge. "You're safe here. Come on, let me help you." Jay hesitated, his gaze flickering between Marcus and the empty street behind him. For a moment, Marcus thought the boy might run again, but then Jay took a tentative step toward him. I don't know who to trust," Jay muttered, his voice trembling. "There's so much happening. I don't know who to turn to." Marcus's heart softened. He could feel the weight of Jay's fear, the isolation in his voice. It reminded him too much of what he had felt when he was younger, when the world seemed so much more dangerous and uncertain. "You're not alone, Jay," Marcus said, taking a step closer, keeping his tone calm. "I'm here to help you. Just trust me." Jay's eyes darted around again, but something in Marcus's voice seemed to anchor him. He stepped forward, his shoulders relaxed just a little. "What's going on?" Marcus asked quietly, looking at the boy intently. "Why are they after you?" Jay looked down at the ground, his fingers twitching nervously. "I don't know, man," he whispered. "I just wanted to be left alone, but they won't let me go." Marcus paused for a moment, his thoughts racing. "Who are they, Jay? Who's chasing you?" Jay hesitated, then spoke in a low, urgent voice. "The police. But it's not just them. There's something else going on. Something bigger. I can't explain it, but I know it's bad." Marcus's stomach tightened. The mention of the police made his skin crawl. He had been trying to stay away from trouble, but this was no longer just a chance encounter. "We need to get out of here," Marcus said quickly, looking around. He wasn't sure who was watching, but he didn't want to take any chances. The two of them started moving, walking quickly but carefully down the side street, avoiding the main road. Marcus kept his eyes peeled, scanning every car and pedestrian as they passed. "Where are we going?" Jay asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Somewhere safe," Marcus replied, glancing back one last time. "Somewhere no one will find us." The street was eerily quiet as Marcus and Jay moved through the back alleyways. The usual hustle of the city was strangely absent. It was as if the entire world had gone still, waiting for something. Jay kept glancing nervously over his shoulder, but Marcus didn't say anything. He could feel the weight of the situation hanging in the air. It wasn't just the police they had to worry about anymore. "Marcus," Jay whispered, his voice trembling, "what if they catch us? What if we're not fast enough?" Marcus looked at him, his expression hardening. "We're going to make it, Jay. Just stay close, don't make any noise, and keep moving. We can't stop now." They turned another corner, and Marcus motioned for Jay to keep down, ducking behind a stack of crates. A van passed by, its engine humming loudly, but it didn't stop. The tension in the air was thick. Every sound, every movement seemed to echo in their minds, making it feel like the walls were closing in on them. "I don't know how much longer we can keep running," Jay muttered, voice barely audible. "What happens if they catch us?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. He had no plan, no answers. He only had the will to keep moving, to survive. "We can't let them catch us," he said finally, his voice low but firm. "We have to keep going. Whatever happens, we can't stop." They continued through the alleys, their footsteps muffled by the thick fog rolling in. The sound of distant sirens started to fill the air, but it wasn't clear if they were getting closer or moving away. "Where are we going?" Jay asked again, desperation creeping into his voice. "There's a place I know," Marcus said quickly. "It's not far from here. It's an old building, hidden away. No one ever goes there." Jay nodded, still uncertain, but trusting Marcus's judgment. They kept moving, the shadows of the city swallowing them as they pushed forward. The old building was a few blocks away, tucked between two run-down shops. Marcus pushed open the rusty door, which creaked loudly, and they slipped inside. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and dust. There were broken windows, and the floors creaked under their weight. The building was empty, but it offered the one thing they needed: safety, for now. Marcus led Jay to the farthest corner of the building, where there was a small room with a few old chairs and a dusty table. He motioned for Jay to sit. "We need to wait here," Marcus said quietly, keeping watch near the door. "We'll figure things out in the morning." Jay sat down slowly, still shaken. "Do you really think we'll be safe here?" Marcus looked at him, his face hard. "It's the best we've got outside." The city seemed to hold its breath. The quiet was almost deafening. Inside the abandoned building, all they could do was wait and hope that tomorrow would offer them a way out.